We all have our default moves when things get a little heated. Right? Some people, are ready to rumble.
Oh, yeah.
Others make a beeline for the exit.
Right.
But what if your go-to is to either completely freeze up
Yeah.
or become like the ultimate yes person, even when it's hurting you?
That's interesting how our brains deal with conflict in different ways.
Right.
And today we're talking about a stress reaction that doesn't always get, the spotlight, the freeze-fawn response.
Yes.
It's surprisingly common.
Yeah.
And it can really affect your relationships and even how you see yourself.
Absolutely. And
Oh.
for this deep dive, we're using this great article
Okay.
called Understanding the Freeze-Fawn Response and Overcoming Shame.
Okay.
To understand exactly what this response is all about,
Okay.
why it can lead to so much shame,
Right.
and most importantly, how to break free.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
It's really about understanding how our nervous system tries to protect us, even if those old strategies are doing more harm than good these days.
So let's unpack this freeze-fawn response.
Okay.
It's like this two-part harmony of stress reactions, right?
Exactly. You have the freeze,
Yeah.
where you just feel like a deer in headlights.
Oh, yeah.
Your mind goes blank. You can't make a decision.
Yeah.
And all you want is to, vanish.
Right.
And then there's the fawn response,
Oh.
where you're bending over backward to please others,
Right.
putting their needs way ahead of your own, all to keep the peace or just feel safe.
It's not just avoiding the conflict.
Yeah.
It's like actively trying to smooth things over,
Right.
even at your own expense.
Exactly.
Which makes me think about all those times I've agreed to things I really didn't want to do just to avoid any kind of awkwardness.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to that.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember this isn't weakness.
Right.
These are survival mechanisms that have been honed over generations, especially in environments where conflict felt dangerous.
Like growing up in a family
Yeah.
where every disagreement turned into a shouting match.
Exactly.
So your brain learns that
Right.
staying silent or being agreeable
Yes.
is the safest way to survive.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But the tricky part is
Yeah.
these responses can become so ingrained
Right.
that they kick in even when there's no real threat anymore.
Oh.
They just become your default mode.
Which brings us to the shame spiral.
Yeah.
This article really hit a nerve for me because it talks about how freeze-fawn can leave you feeling trapped
Right.
in this cycle of shame and self-doubt.
Yeah.
Have you seen that in your work?
All the time.
Really?
When you're constantly freezing or fawning,
Yeah.
you start judging yourself for not being stronger, for not standing up for yourself.
Right.
You feel like a coward even though you know it's not that simple.
That's so true. And then there's the resentment that kind of simmers beneath the surface because you're constantly betraying your own needs to keep everyone else happy.
It's like you're putting on this performance of agreeableness, but inside you're screaming.
Right.
And often people misinterpret your behavior, seeing you as passive or uncaring,
Oh, yeah.
which just adds another layer of hurt.
It's like being stuck in a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
The more you freeze or fawn, the more shame you feel,
Right.
and the harder it is to break free.
It's a vicious cycle.
So where do we even begin to untangle this mess?
Well, the article emphasizes understanding where this response comes from.
Okay.
It's not about blame,
Right.
but recognizing that freeze-fawn was likely a way to protect yourself in difficult situations.
So it's about looking back with curiosity rather than judgment.
Exactly.
Were there times when conflict felt unsafe?
Yeah.
Maybe in childhood or past relationships.
Right.
Understanding those roots
Yeah.
can help replace self-criticism with self-compassion,
Absolutely.
which feels much more empowering.
It is. And once you understand the origins,
Yeah.
you can start to interrupt the automatic cycle.
Okay.
The article suggests a simple but powerful tool, just naming the response when it's happening.
Okay.
Like saying to yourself, okay, I'm freezing up right now because this feels unsafe.
That's such a great tip.
It is.
It's like hitting the pause button on autopilot and becoming more aware of what's actually happening
Yeah.
in your body and mind.
Exactly. And by naming it,
Yeah.
you create space to choose a different response.
Right.
Instead of seeing freeze-fawn as weakness, try to see it as resilience.
Yeah.
Your nervous system was doing its best to keep you safe.
Wow.
Now you have the power to choose new strategies.
I love that reframe. From weakness to resilience.
It's a good one.
But what about actual action steps?
Yeah.
What can people do to start breaking the cycle?
Well, the article suggests starting with grounding techniques.
Okay.
These are really simple but powerful ways To bring yourself back to the present moment,
Right.
when you feel that familiar freeze or fawn response starting to take over.
You know, I've heard about grounding techniques before,
Yeah.
but I always thought they were just for anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I never connected them to Freeze-Fawn.
Interesting.
Can you give us some examples?
Of course, one of the most effective ones
Okay.
is deep intentional breathing.
Okay.
It sounds so basic,
Yeah.
but it really works.
Okay.
Try inhaling slowly for a count of 4.
Mm.
Hold for 4 and then exhale for 6.
Okay.
It's like hitting the reset button
Yeah.
for your nervous system.
That makes sense. Deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system,
Exactly.
which is like your body's built-in calming mechanism.
It is.
It helps you shift out of that fight or flight mode,
Yeah.
which is where Freeze-Fawn tends to live.
Exactly. Another great technique is
Oh.
sensory grounding.
Okay.
This one's all about tuning into your senses.
Okay.
Try naming 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear,
Right.
3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell,
Wow.
and 1 thing you can taste.
It's like you're anchoring yourself to the present moment
Yeah,
using your senses.
exactly.
I could see how that would be so helpful
Yeah.
in interrupting those racing thoughts
Right.
and that feeling of being overwhelmed.
It can really ground you.
And the best part is you can do these techniques anywhere, anytime.
Absolutely.
No one even has to know what you're doing.
Exactly. They're incredibly discreet
Yeah.
and accessible tools,
Right.
but it's not just about managing those in-the-moment reactions.
Right.
It's also about making long-term changes.
Okay.
That's where setting boundaries comes in.
That's where it gets tricky. Right.
Yeah.
Because for someone who spent a lifetime fawning,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of setting boundaries can feel absolutely terrifying.
Oh, I know it can.
It can feel like you're risking rejection
Right.
or even danger.
It feels so unsafe.
Where do you even begin?
Well, the article emphasizes that setting boundaries doesn't have to be this big dramatic confrontation.
Okay.
It's about starting small.
Oh.
Maybe it's saying no to a low-stakes request, like declining an invitation to an event
Yeah.
you don't really want to attend.
Right.
Or perhaps it's asking for time to think things over
Okay.
before committing to something.
I love that it's like building a muscle.
Exactly.
You start with lighter weights.
Yes.
And gradually increase the intensity as you get stronger.
Right.
It's the same with boundaries.
Absolutely.
You don't have to go from 0 to 60 overnight.
It's a process.
Each time you successfully assert a boundary,
Yeah.
even a small one,
Yeah.
you build confidence.
Exactly.
And you start to challenge those old patterns.
It's empowering.
And it's crucial to remember, you don't have to do this alone.
Right.
Surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries
Yes.
and encourage you to express your needs.
It makes such a difference.
So it's about finding those safe relationships where you can be your authentic self
Exactly.
without feeling like you have to walk on eggshells
Yeah.
or constantly people pleasers.
That's a big one.
And for many people, working with a therapist
Yeah.
can be incredibly helpful.
Absolutely.
A therapist who understands trauma
Mm-hmm.
can provide you with personalized tools and support
It's so valuable.
as you navigate this process.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Therapy can provide that safe space
Yes.
to explore the root causes of your freeze-fawn response,
Right.
practice setting boundaries,
Yeah.
and learn how to manage those intense emotions.
It's a safe space to practice.
Right, that might come up
Yeah.
as you start to break free from those old patterns.
It can be really helpful.
But there's one more piece of this puzzle that I found really fascinating.
Okay.
The mind-body connection.
Mm-hmm.
This article suggests that practices like yoga,
Yeah.
meditation, or something called somatic experiencing
It's interesting.
can actually help release the tension that's been held in your body
Right.
from years of freezing and fawning.
It's fascinating.
Didn't you explain how that works?
It is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
For a long time, the focus has been on the psychological aspects of trauma,
Right.
but we're now understanding how much trauma gets stored in the body.
Wow.
Somatic experiencing
Yeah.
is a type of therapy that helps you gently and safely process
Mm-hmm.
those trapped sensations and emotions.
So it's not just about thinking your way out of freeze-fawn.
Right.
It's about feeling your way out of it, too.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the body holds so much wisdom, and by tuning into those physical sensations,
Yeah.
we can access a deeper level of healing.
Okay.
Practices like yoga and meditation can also help regulate the nervous system,
Right.
promoting a sense of calm and grounding from within.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But I think it's important to end on a note of hope and encouragement.
Absolutely.
This article makes it clear
Yeah.
that healing from the freeze-fawn response is a journey, not a destination.
It's so true.
There's no magic wand to wave
Yo.
and make it all disappear overnight.
Right. The key is to approach this journey with compassion for yourself.
Yes.
Recognize that you're not defined by your past responses.
Right.
The fact that you're even aware of Freeze-Fawn and wanting to change is huge.
That's a great point.
It means you're ready to start navigating the world
Mhm.
with greater strength and authenticity.
I love that it's not about perfection.
Right.
It's about progress.
Absolutely. And it's about celebrating those small victories along the way.
Yes.
Each time you speak up for yourself, stay present in a difficult situation,
Right.
or set a boundary, even if it feels shaky at first.
Yeah.
You're rewiring those old patterns and building a new sense of self.
I love that.
Those small steps can have a ripple effect,
Yeah.
creating a new foundation for how you interact with the world
Right.
and with yourself.
I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question. Now that you know about Freeze-Fawn, where do you notice it showing up in your life?
Yeah.
What small step can you take today
Right.
to start shifting that dynamic?
That's a great question to reflect on.
Yeah.
And remember, it's not about beating yourself up for those past responses.
Yeah.
It's about using this awareness to make conscious choices moving forward.
Right.
You have the power to create change.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive, into the Freeze-Fawn response.
It really is.
I don't know about you,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm already thinking about those small steps I can take
Yeah.
to start shifting those old patterns.
It's exciting.
It feels really empowering to have this new awareness.
It is, isn't it? It's been a fascinating exploration.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners feel equipped, to approach this journey with curiosity and kindness toward themselves.
I think so.
It's not about blaming yourself for those automatic responses.
Right.
It's about recognizing them and choosing a different path.
And remembering that you don't have to do this alone.
Absolutely not.
Talking about these kind of lesser-known stress responses
Yeah,
can really help break down the shame
I think so.
and create space for healing and connection.
Absolutely. The more we bring these conversations to light, the more we can support ourselves and each other
Right.
in navigating the world with greater authenticity and resilience.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
This has been incredibly helpful.
I'm glad to hear that.
And to all of our listeners out there,
Yes.
we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable tools and perspectives
Mm-hmm.
on the Freeze-Fawn response.
It's such an important topic.
Remember, you are not defined by your past responses.
Right.
You have the power to create change.
You do.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.